Hey, what's up, everybody? BDO44 coming into another video. All right, so I'm thinking about Spicy P, man, Pascal Siakam. And I was considering what teams he could go to, and the team that came to mind immediately was the Brooklyn Nets. Now, I know that it would be a very simple trade for Toronto and for Brooklyn if they could just swap Ben Simmons for Spicy P's contract. The problem is, if Toronto has any sense, they have no interest in Ben Simmons at all. But there are other ways of getting that done. And so, Spencer Dinwiddie, Dorian Finney-Smith, and Royce O'Neal can match those salaries up. Now, I don't know if that's what you want to do if you're Brooklyn necessarily, given the fact that Spicy is expiring, but so is Spencer Dinwiddie and Royce O'Neal. Now, you do have Dorian on for 3 years, which is probably something that's going to make it so that you want to bring back more than just Spicy Pete if you're the Brooklyn Nets. But my thing is, if you're the Brooklyn Nets, you probably just would be very happy with Spicy Pete, given the fact that you probably have a line drive to re-sign him, given the fact that you have the role. And when I started looking around the league, I don't see his role too many places because he's rendered to being a power forward only. You know, he would have much more options out there if he were able to play the small forward position and power forward position, if he were able to play the center position and power forward position, that kind of thing. But given the fact that I think he's rendered just one position, it's going to be hard to find a spot for him for a team that would otherwise want to pay him. When you start looking at teams, you would need something to open up. Like, for example, if LeBron James decides to opt out of the Lakers, you can see Spicy P's money over here with us. It's the worst case scenario for us, obviously, but like that would be how it would have to happen for him in order for him to play a power forward here. You know, there are teams who may need a power forward, but they ain't gonna want to pay him. That kind of thing. So that's gonna be the issue for Spicy P. But I think Brooklyn may be the squad. Now the problem is they do have that Ben Simmons contract on deck for another couple of years. I don't know how many years, but more than one. If I'm them, I'm trying to get rid of that. And I don't know who the hell's going to take it, because given the fact that his back is so bad, he doesn't shoot the ball, et cetera, the history. I just think they're stuck with Ben Simmons no matter what. And so that could kind of put a monkey wrench on what you want to do in terms of investing in a power forward, because Ben Simmons can't play power forward. So you're not in a real position to try to throw all your money at that position if you're the Brooklyn Nets in some cases. But when you consider what you're giving up in trade, you're giving up two forwards. So it's like Dorian Finney-Smith and Royce O'Neal going out. That's his minutes. That's his position that right there. So, and if Ben Simmons is 100% healthy, you still got Mikal Bridges, you still got Cam Johnson, you still got Cam Thomas. That's a good team when you put Spicy P on that squad. So I like Spicy P for Brooklyn so long as Brooklyn's willing to pay the price to get rid of, to bring him in. If I'm Toronto, I would love to have that deal just because I think that's more than what Toronto's going to basically get. 3 players, 2 of them expiring, so you get that money coming off your books. The one that you would probably want out of the 3 players would be on for multiple years. That's something Toronto should probably want to do. Dorian Finney-Smith is an excellent piece to bring to Toronto, although they're wing happy. Spencer Dinwiddie, another guard. You probably want to move him to a third spot if you're Toronto, maybe. Maybe you don't necessarily want to take him back, given the fact you got Quickly and Schroeder, but maybe you move Schroeder in this deal. I don't know, but having Spencer Dinwiddie on as a rental probably doesn't excite me, but it does make the salaries match, so I can find another place for him and his $20 million expiring contract, which shouldn't be too hard because it is $20 million coming off the books at the end of the season. With Royce O'Neal at $9 million expiring as well. So if you want to hold on to those guys for the rest of the season, you definitely have a deep team, probably a little too deep for the guard position, but you got everything you need at your forward position replacing Spicy P, and you can see yourself maybe digging your way into the playoffs, given the fact that you've made all these type of trades to bring yourself more depth if you're Toronto. So I don't know if Masai Ujiri goes for that. He probably wants a little more for Spicy P, Pascal Siakam, but I don't know he's going to get it. Because the problem is he almost had to deal with Sacramento, but Sacramento was ultimately forced to pull out because he, refused to re-sign with them. And I think that's going to be kind of the story for most of the places that you try to send him to. He ain't going to want to resign with nobody because he's ultimately looking to get free agency money in the open market. The thing about it is, I think Brooklyn has a fantastic chance of re-signing him. They could use the star power, they could use the power forward, and if they make this trade, they definitely could use the wing power. So that's what it is. They have the expiring contracts to make it make sense. Philadelphia, from what I understand, wouldn't mind doing a deal like that. Maybe if you're Toronto, you'd love to bring back Tobias Harris, but if you're going to bring in Tobias Harris expiring at 35, why don't you just re-sign Pascal Siakam or just keep him for the rest of the season? I don't see any difference. I don't see a difference. I think Spicy P's a better player than Tobias Harris. So if I'm going to pay anybody, it's going to be the guy that I've drafted and kept the whole time, who I think is a better player. So I don't think a trade with the Philadelphia 76ers makes a whole lot of sense, because it would likely be Tobias Harris going back to Toronto. I don't think that's an upgrade. And you got the same problem with your books, because he's coming off. He's going to likely go somewhere else if you don't pay him. So maybe you think you could pay him at a lesser price than what Spicy's going to be asking for. Maybe that's incentive for you to bring him in, but I don't think you particularly need what he does. If anything, you just would like to keep Pascal at a lesser price because you've had him this long. But even him, it's like you would rather him get out of there at that position so that you can have Scotty Barnes start to take over a bit, and so on and so forth. You got R.J. Barrett in place. So it's just time for Pascal to move on, but I don't know that you're bringing in someone in his position that does the same things he does. If you're Philadelphia, you want that upgrade, but why am I doing that if I'm Toronto? Philly's probably going to have to throw more into the trade, and that's a little risky when you start talking about sending out a $35 million expiring contract and pieces. If you're Philadelphia, I don't know. If they're not going to be able to re-sign Pascal Siakam, if he doesn't necessarily fit with Joel or something like that, it could be really, risky, throwing anything more into that trade. So I hear people saying Philly for Pascal, but I honestly don't know if it makes any sense at all to do a trade for him if you're Philly. Because if you're moving other stuff other than Tobias Harris, you could potentially lose both of them. You know what I mean? You don't want that headache. You bring Tobias Harris to you, you got Pascal Siakam, and you got Joel Embiid. What if Pascal and Tobias both sign with somebody else? Now it's like so much salary coming off your books, and you really don't have a way to recoup all that in free agency, because I don't think this free agency pot is that great. That's playing Russian roulette with your team, in my mind. Yeah, you might get yourself a championship, maybe you still lose to Boston anyway. I'm moving Tobias for him if I'm Philly, or I'm probably not doing the deal, and if I'm Toronto, I'm not doing that deal. So that's why Brooklyn looks good to me. Of course, the Knicks can jump in with picks, but again, Pascal Siakam, somebody I need to know I'm re-signing. And if I'm the Knicks, why do I need to bring in Pascal if I got Juju? You see what I'm saying? Now, maybe you say Pascal's almost 7 feet. Maybe he plays the center position. Him and Juju together, clogged paint. They both shoot the three, but I don't like the fit. I think it's a lot of talent, but I think ultimately the fit is funny. That's my opinion. Maybe you'd consider a team like OKC. They could use a player like Pascal Siakam, come in and immediately be a power forward for them. That would make them a championship. They probably win the ring with that. But the only thing is, what do I have to give up if I'm them? I'm giving up young talent that makes up my team who they are for potentially somebody who's likely going to want to test free agency and probably ain't going to want to stay in OKC unless we overpay for him. And if I overpay for him, am I putting at risk everybody else's money who I definitely am going to want to keep? That's the question. Am I really letting go of Jay Will or J Dub, brother? Hell no. Am I moving Giddy? Maybe with the stuff that's going on around his name, maybe not, given the fact that I drafted him. He's still a fantastic point guard player with a lot of size. Am I moving J Will, the actual Jalen Williams, rather than J Dub? I mean, maybe in that trade, but maybe not. They got a lot of young talent that they still need to see if they can develop at that power forward position. You still got, oh God, I can't think of his name, but another power forward on that bench that they took in the lottery a couple years back. So You got a couple guys at the power forward position. Maybe you move both of them for Pascal Siakam, and then you lose Pascal Siakam, and you're out of that young talent. Too risky for me if I'm OKC, and given the way they like to hold on to young players. I don't think so, man. I don't think so. I just don't see it. Maybe Utah, but why would they take a risk on a player that wants to win now? That's probably going to leave at the end of the season. That's not going to put them in a position to win a championship. So, like, if you're a team like Utah, you're not good enough right now to be trying to trade for Pascal Siakam. Unless you plan on re-signing him, and as to which, I guess that makes you good in the future. But right now, I could totally see him having a bad season there and then wanting to dip out somewhere else. So it's like when you start looking around at where Pascal could actually be traded to, the teams that have the trade package, you have to ask yourself if he'd be willing to re-sign with them, and would it be worth for them to give up the package to Masai Ujiri, you know is going to want heaven and earth move for anything that he's giving up. It's the market starts to shrink. It really does. And I know it's one of those things where Masai has already played Russian roulette in a way with certain free agents like this, to where he didn't get a deal and he let them walk, or he didn't get a deal and he didn't trade him when he probably should have. So you know, I don't know if he sees that as a mistake, but this is one of their best players, an NBA champion. You don't want to give him up for anything less than what you want, which is why you don't let it even get to this point, if you ask me. You don't let him get to an expiring contract. You make sure you trade him the year before that. So that's kind of something that maybe you look at if you're him. Maybe you look for other teams that have a 2-year contract on a guy who they probably don't want to see in this situation next year. Now, I didn't check it around to see who that is, but that might be his best bet, finding somebody who's not a free agent this upcoming summer, but will be in 25 summer, with the same dollar amount on their account, on their contract or something like that. Maybe that's the way to go, because there's going to be some teams that aren't going to want to find themselves in the situation Masai is in right now. So that's something. But when you start looking around, honestly, there are not too many teams that really need a power forward, man. Not too many. A lot of teams have that position sold. A lot of teams have their center position sold up. Or doing weird things with their power forward and center's position. Like if you look at what Cleveland has going on, for example. Can you see yourself maybe bringing in a guy like Jared Allen? But why would Cleveland bring in trade away Jared Allen to bring in Spicy P at a 1-year deal, when they're probably not? He's not going to re-sign in Cleveland, and I don't know if that upgrades your team, especially doesn't defensively. Maybe you can score extra 30 points, but I don't know if that's going to get you over the hump against a Boston or somebody like that. So you start looking and you ask yourself, if you're Toronto, do you want to trade him in the Eastern Conference? Do you really want him coming back biting you? Maybe you trade him to a team with a different timeline, but do those teams find themselves with any incentive to trade for a guy like that, knowing they're probably not going to re-sign him? Like a team like Detroit, for example, maybe they have a package that Masai would want, but is Spicy really going to stay in Detroit in this era? Hell no, he's going to get the hell out of there fast. They may be the ones that want to pay him, though, and he may want to consider how much better he can make a team like that. But, I mean, if he couldn't drag a Toronto team to anything better than what they were this year, he's been healthy all season, and he wasn't no good with him as the top guy with a bunch of talent. So how they going to be, the Detroit Pistons, a better team, trading for him, gutting some of their depth with their young players, and expected for him to do what with Kate Cunningham? You know what I mean? And win with him expiring at the end of the season. So that would be a team that if I'm him, I'm like, if I'm just here for the money, maybe Detroit, one of these bad, horrible teams, would be willing to pay me. But if I'm Detroit, I'm hesitant to believe that risk is worth it. I would want that guarantee now, or else I'm not trading away my Jaden Ivey and Duran and all the. I'm not trading them dudes. And Masai is probably going to want to fleece them off the strength of their bad team anyway, so he's going to want more from them than he wants from most. So these are the type of situations you're looking at. Who's going to want to trade for an expiring Pascal Siakam that he would be willing to re-sign with, which is nobody, So it's like, who's gonna do that? Who's gonna do that? I think Brooklyn would do that. I think Brooklyn would do it, because he's in New York. You know what I mean? That's a big market team. He's playing. They need a star. That's evident. That's been evident since they made the trade, to bring in Mikal Bridges. He's not a number one. Now I'm not saying Pascal's a number one, but it gives you a lot more star power as to say the combination of them can be a number one. And you look at Cam, and Thomas, both the Cams. That's a playoff team if they get Pascal Siakam this year. They could probably start racking up some wins that they don't have the ability of getting right now, in theory. And it also takes care of their Spencer Dinwiddie problem and Royce O'Neal problem, since they probably want to get rid of those expiring contracts and not lose them for nothing. And you certainly want to re-sign Pascal Siakam over them two, if you're the Nets. So that team seems like the team to me. If they'll trade them in the Eastern Conference and be willing to take back Dinwiddie, O'Neal, and Dorian, and then Toronto, like I said, they probably insert a third team into that situation. Maybe the Lakers or something. We take back Dorian or something like that. So they could just have the money coming off the books for a player that they don't care to re-sign. I don't know if that's a positive or a negative for Toronto. I really don't know. Maybe they want to keep Dorian. Maybe they give us Royce. Maybe they give us Spencer. Maybe we send them something. I don't know. That's just hypothetical. But point is, if they don't want to bring back those three guys, they can add a third team and get something else out of that. But I think the Nets should look into that. I think the Nets should be a team that's willing to take the risk. Worst case scenario, you got $35 million coming off your books. Pascal don't want to resign with you. And you're also moving on from some players that you probably ain't going to want to resign any damn way. And if you're shopping Dorian Finney-Smith anyway, why not try to take a flyer on a superstar-ish type guy like Spicy P, who's proven champion, who will likely help your team a lot, who's going to enjoy offensive circumstances with guys like Cam, and Mikal around him shooting on the perimeter, so it opens up his lane to do his spin moves and all the stuff that he likes to do. I just think that seems like the best place that I could think of. There are others probably, maybe Miami, but I think Brooklyn makes a lot of sense. As I consider Miami, they could probably use a power forward, but do they have the package that Masai is going to want? And judging by Miami's history, I don't know, man. The word on the street with Miami for me is their players look better in their system than they do anywhere else. You see what's going on with us and Gabe Vincent. You saw what happened with Kendrick Nunn in L.A. We, personally, the Lakers, probably don't want to really do any more deals with Miami. Unless it's going to get us Bam or Tyler Hero or something. We ain't interested in nothing role-ish from them. And when you consider what Miami would likely want to do with Toronto, they're going to send them back Kyle Lowry or something like that. I think the Brooklyn Nets could outbid them. I really do. They could outbid them. And so I think Spicy people probably love to play in Miami. He's probably a good bet to resign there. But the package, I don't think Pat Riley's going to want to give up what Masai's going to ask for an expiring $35 million contract. Masai probably going to want Tyler, Jaquez, stuff like that, stuff that's not going to be moving out of Miami. So that is why I don't think Miami is probably going to be able to land him. If they do land him, it'll be in free agency or something like that, and I don't know how they're going to create the space. So I guess that's the thing. Spicy P probably help himself if he just say where he more likely want to resign. Just tell the team, hey, look, these are the three teams that I would love to be with. If they'd be love to have me, and just do the homework on who has the cap space and who'd be willing to open up the space for you, and then come back with a list instead of doing what he did, which is waiting until Masai had a trade and then saying, nah, I ain't gonna resign there and messing up that trade. That prolongs how long it takes for you to get where you're going. That's what I would say to Pascal in his representation. You're making Masai waste time. He could be talking to the guys you would be willing to trade with, instead of wasting his time talking to Sacramento. He's only one man, so you don't want him on the phone with Sacramento for 3 days if you know damn well you ain't gonna go there. So that's why you give a guy a list when you're in this type of situation. But I was listening to Toronto fans. They're essentially saying Spicy P is doing too much. You're not gonna get no $80 million. You're not gonna get the contract that you're looking for, bro. That's what they're saying. I don't know. I claim ignorance. I haven't really been following him that closely in his career to really know how that goes. I don't know how good he is, honestly. I know from afar he's somebody I could count on to give me some scoring, probably about 8 boards. But and he does spin moves that people often say he spams a little too much. Other than that, I don't really know nothing about Spicy P, to be completely honest with you. Play for Toronto, I don't really follow them as much. It's maybe some other teams, but when you start thinking about where he can go, you start realizing all the bad teams, he ain't gonna want to resign there. All the really good teams probably already have power forwards or ain't gonna want to take a risk on an expiring contract for him. So you start looking around and you start seeing the market's pretty dry. But then you look at a team like Brooklyn and see this. You can see it. You can see that. You can really see that. And maybe there's a few more. There are definitely teams I haven't thought about. Portland, for example, may be willing to move on from that Jeremy Grant contract. Maybe if you're Toronto, you probably don't want that contract. I hear Philadelphia may be interested in that contract, which is an entirely different conversation, but irrelevant given the fact that I didn't think Portland would be able to move it. But it seems like there's some traction there. Maybe you get Philly involved in a 3-team deal and send Pascal to Portland, send Pascal to Portland, Tobias to Portland, or Pascal to Toronto, Pascal to Philly, Tobias to Portland, Grant to Philly. I don't know. You get the point. Maybe try to move all 3 of those guys. Just send them in different spaces. But you know what I'm saying? It's kind of hard, man. I know Tobias Harris is likely on the move, unless Philly's going to pay him his price. And it seems like they're dangling him. So if they want Grant, maybe Pascal goes to Portland. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. But if I'm Pascal, am I re-signing with Portland? Nah, I'm not re-signing with Portland. See what I'm saying? So it's like Pascal's got to figure it out, man. I think Brooklyn's probably his best bet. I really do. Judging by what I'm looking at, the landscape out there, that's a good bet for him. You look at Charlotte, they probably got the package. Maybe Miles Bridges, and P.J. Washington or something like that. But if you're Pascal, are you going to re-sign with Charlotte? Hell no, I ain't re-signing with Charlotte. You see, that's the problem. That is the problem. He ain't going to want to re-sign with none of the teams that have the best packages. And those teams would not be wise to trade for him unless he's willing to resign. You know what I mean? Maybe Charlotte. Because the thing about Charlotte is like, okay, what's cap space to Charlotte? They can't get anybody to sign there. So even if he's an expiring contract, that's not what they need. They need multiple year guys already on contract. They need a Jeremy Grant. That's who Charlotte needs, Jeremy Grant. They got him on tab for 5 years. Even though I've told you guys that I don't think they should want those type of contracts, when you consider the fact that they can't get nobody to sign their own contracts, they got to try to take something from somebody else. And I think that makes a lot of sense, man. Portland gets P.J. Washington, Miles Bridges, and you send them Jeremy Grant's 5-year deal. Jeremy ain't got nothing to say about it. He's already under contract. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do if I'm Portland, man. Something like that. I know I got into a different conversation, but like these are the type of things you think about with the power forward position, which is why it's hard to find a spot for Spicy P. That's the point. So, I don't know, man. Denver, you know what I'm saying? Maybe they move on from Aaron Gordon. Is that an upgrade? I don't know. I like Aaron Gordon's role for Denver. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's an upgrade. Maybe not when you consider what Gordon does specifically for that already championship team. No. Basically is the answer. No. You think about the Lakers, unless Spicy P can play some 3, we know Bron ain't playing no 3. That's the problem with Rui Hachimura right now, is we can't find minutes for him. Because all these guys are 4s. Anthony's a 5. You ain't moving him to the 3. So like there's no role for Spicy in LA. Unless he coming off the bench playing the Rui Hachimura / Christian Wood role, which is definitely not the role you want to be in under Darvin Ham when you're trying to make more money than what you're worth when you're about to expire. So no, that's one of the worst places for him, even though we would love the influx of talent. He would be playing a role that's much lesser than what it is he would ultimately be asking for. So where are you going, Spicy? Where you going, bro? Sacramento probably is one of the best places for you, to be honest with you, because they overloaded with talent. They put you next to Sabonis. You got Malik Monk. You got De'Aaron Fox. You got, Murray. I mean, I think he might have made a mistake not wanting to go there, to be honest with you. That might have been his second championship ring. As good as they could have been in throwing him in that offensive rotation. But, guys want money, man. You can't tell a guy not to go after the wealth, but are you overthinking this? I mean, did you not learn it from Dennis? Did you not learn anything from Dennis Schroeder? Sometimes your market just ain't what you think it should be, man. I don't remember exactly who I was listening to. It might have been Unc, but they were essentially saying it ain't about what you believe your market is. It's about what someone's willing to pay you. And if you put yourself out there, priced out the game, you end up the next Dennis Schroeder, bro. And I'm afraid Spicy P might be somewhere in that space. Worst case scenario, he end up signing a 1-year deal with somebody trying to prove that he's worth the money he's worth. That ain't worth it, bro. That ain't worth it, especially with the age he got. He, 29, 30 years old? I mean, you're essentially being pushed out by a team that wants to go forward with a young core that can win. I mean, that's crazy to me when you really consider it. Toronto's bringing in players that can help them. They just want to go younger. And they want you out the way because you are more or less somebody who's going to pushing around for the leading role when they want to give it to Scotty. So it's like that already puts you behind the 8 ball because certain teams ain't gonna want to bring you in for that exact same problem. Are you gonna be someone who wants more as a role and from money perspective? Think about a team like Chicago. Maybe they'd be willing to do it, right? That's another team that might be interested. But if I'm Masai Ujiri, once I start looking at what Chicago has, I'm not going to want to take back what they're giving me. I'm going to want stuff they don't want to give up. And so that's the problem with Chicago. Do they have the role? Are they going to move on from Patrick Williams and say DeMar DeRozan, send him back to Toronto to bring in a Spicy P rental with their situation? At best, that's lateral. At best. You're going to give up Alex Caruso and Vucevic. I don't think that really does it either. I mean, from Toronto, maybe that helps me, but I got Pirtle. He's coming back from injury at some point, so it's like, what do I need with all that? What am I doing with all that, man? So yeah, man, I don't see very many spots for Spicy P as I canvass the league further. I don't see much. Milwaukee could certainly use him next to Giannis, but Giannis plays the 4. Can he play the 5? Are you moving Giannis back to the 5? This is just... And of course, the Golden State Warriors come into play. But see, the problem with the Warriors is they already got so much of their salary wrapped up in players. To how are you going to find your role there? You moving Draymond back to the 5? You going to play some small ball 5 for him since you're going to have him at the 4. They already have problems getting Kuminga on the floor. Sort of like the Laker issue. They have problems putting Kuminga on the floor. Now they got the Davis kid balling out at that position. So even when you look at Golden State, who's been rumored to want him, they may not necessarily have the role that he wants. And thus, he probably ain't going to want to resign with them. Thus, they probably shouldn't be willing to make a move for a rental who may not be happy with his role. So even Golden State's a little iffy. So, I don't know, man. I don't know where Spicy P going, man. Telling y'all Brooklyn makes the most sense to me. VDL44. I thank y'all for watching. I'm out.